Throughout the 6 years of this show, we've been giving you a lot of information about bullying, as well as on our newsletter, givmeabreak.substack.com. On Saturday, we focused in on 5 stories about bullying and a parent whose mission it is to put an end to it and hold schools accountable to make sure it doesn't happen again. A little bit later on, I'm going to show you a clip. I'm going to show you a 2020 story about this issue. But first, the doctor is in. You're now going to meet a pediatrician who says there is a solution. Watch.
The doctor is in, and today it is pediatrician Dr. Robert Whitrock from Ascension St. John Pediatric and Adolescent Medicine. And with the kids back in school, we're talking about bullying. Of course, this is not a fun conversation, but it's something that a lot of children unfortunately deal with.
Absolutely. Bullying is something now that school's coming in. We're starting to see it a lot more. It's something that kind of gets worse as the year goes on and kids kind of get to know each other a bit more. So the first thing I think I like to do is really identify what bullying is. So the real definition is whenever there's two different children and one of them repeatedly picks on the other one over and over again. It usually has to be a repeated offense. There's not one great definition of what a bully is or what a victim is, but usually it's seen whenever there's kind of a power imbalance between the two. You know, one of the kids may be unpopular, smaller, weaker. Sometimes they may be different than the other kids. Sometimes they have a different skin color, gender orientation, something that makes them different and then seen by the bully as lesser.
And so if you're a child and you're experiencing bullying, what is something you can do?
Right. So one of the things that I have families talk with children about is, do we have it on? Yeah, there we go. When the bullying is going on, I tell my kids, look the bully in the eye. You need to stand tall and stay calm. Staying calm is really important. You know, I don't want them to feed off of those emotions. Sometimes the bullying is trying to get something from the other child. The child needs to tell them very firmly, I don't like what you're doing. Please stop. And then I want them to walk away and tell a trusted adult. Whenever you're at home talking with your kids, you know, because the kid probably went through a very traumatic situation and it's hard for them to kind of deal with that. So,
and how do you know specifically if you're a parent, this is a situation where I need to maybe get, supervisors involved or, administration,
right. Or... when it's affecting your kid. You know, go in and talk with the principal, talk with the teachers, try and get a feel for what really is going on. And hopefully they might be able to find some kind of intervention or do something about it. What you can do at home, give your kid lots of love, lots of support. Let them know that they still have worth.
And that they're loved.
Yeah, it's really important. You know, show them that, that even though that happened, that's something that is not their fault. Because a lot of times kids tend to blame themselves about those kinds of things. One thing that's also important is after school, try and find something fun for them to do that they can throw themselves and be good at something. Usually that's, karate, Boy Scouts, robotics clubs, sports, art, whatever it is that they can be around a different community that is more supportive to them.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much,
Absolutely.
Dr. Whitrock. We appreciate it as always.
And I thank him for sharing this with the show, even though he's not here. Now, there is another bullying story. 3 weeks ago, a mother claims bullying led to her brawl at Goose Creek CCISD. I want to warn you, this tape is extremely hard to watch. Let's watch. So let's take a
Creek
look.
ISD parent says her son was bullied and that...
Let's take a look.
A Goose Creek ISD parent says her son was bullied and that led to a physical fight on campus.
And this happened at Ross Sterling High in Baytown, and that's where we find our Brittany Ford. So Brittany, the student's mother believes this could have been prevented.
Well, the student's mom says she reported bullying concerns to the school prior to this fight happening. Concerns she says the school did nothing about.
It's pretty much bullying.
Cell phone video inside Ross Sterling High School captures a brawl breaking out between a group of students.
I'm very disappointed. I'm angered. I have been losing sleep because my son was attacked.
The video doesn't show the moments leading up to the fight, but the student you see in the bright colored sweatshirt is Selena Charles's 16-year-old son. We've blurred the faces of the other students in the video, which does not have audio because they are minors. Charles says her son was forced to defend himself.
I feel like the principal dropped the bomb and also the security guard.
She says her son, who has dyslexia, has been repeatedly bullied. Concerns she brought to the principal last week.
He told me he would talk to him first thing Monday morning. And I feel like if he would have talked to them, none of that would have never happened.
She's now taken on the help of civil rights activist Quanell X, who claims the school has a history of gang-related concerns.
They told us this is not the first kid this year that this has happened to on this campus where the gang wants to jump somebody in and force them to be a part of it.
Goose ISD sent this statement saying the incident was a mutual fight between students and that there is no indication at this time of any bullying or gang-related motive behind the altercation. Charles says she's looking to take some sort of legal action.
But I can say I do want to file charges.
File charges, that's good.
Now, the district says all of the students involved were disciplined according to Goose ISD's Student Code of Conduct. Reporting in Baytown this evening, Brittany Ford, KHOU 11 News.
All right, Brittany, thank you.
All right. Later on, we're going to tell you about a bullying that happened at a charter school, and the mom who saw it is now speaking out. But when we come back, a 2020 story that left me surprised and may leave you surprised. It's a story about two girls who are being bullied, but you may be shocked to learn what the school district's idea was and the punishment that had happened. Stay with us. What would you tell these two girls about the situation? She says that some girls have singled her out, harassed them, bullied them. But you may be shocked to learn what had happened when they tried to report to the school district. And this was 25 years ago. 25 years ago, this story aired on 2020. I watched this several times to see this response. The outrageous decision you're about to hear, and the accusations you're about to hear from parents and these kids, and the decision of the school board could leave you speechless. Here's Steve Averson.
Who can forget that tender, awkward time called junior high? Ages 12, 13, 14, those agonizing years when you're not a child or a grown-up, when you really don't know who you are, and all you want is to fit in. The world begins and ends around a single place, your school. And what happens there somehow seems to stay with you, deep inside somewhere, forever. For Christina Barcelino, a year ago September, that all-important place was Franklin Regional Junior High, where she was starting 7th grade. She was about to turn 13, excited but vulnerable.
We shopped for probably about a good 3 weeks, and that whole night she sat there, picked out her total wardrobe that she was going to wear to school that morning, and woke up and decided to change her mind.
The first few weeks went well. Christina made new friends, joined the chorus, but then at a football game one Friday night, everything suddenly changed. Christina found herself in that most painful of junior high school predicaments, the target of teasing and taunting from a group of scary older girls.
These group of girls that had a really bad reputation came up to me, pushed me, told me they didn't like me, and to watch me back at school.
Were you with any friends at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah? What did they say?
They, kind of just ran the other way.
The next week at school was even worse. She says the girls found out her schedule and would chase her from class to class.
They followed me through the halls and pushed me up against lockers and gave me death threats.
Death threats?
Mm-hmm.
Like what?
You're gonna die. I'm gonna kill you.
That's a threat.
To a 13-year-old girl struggling to find her way in a new school, it was terrifying. She kept a journal, not of crushes or secret dreams, but of distress.
Those girls were following me all week, swearing at me, pushing me, hitting me. They stand outside the door and tell me I'm going to die.
It's been 2 more weeks, and they keep on doing this to me. It's ruining my life and my grades. I don't know what to do. I think they're seriously going to hurt me.
We had no idea she was going through this. Not at all.
Christina's mother, Liz.
And during this whole time, she stopped eating, she stopped sleeping, she was really cranky, really miserable. We thought, okay, typical teenager, here we go, you know, the teen years.
Like many troubled teens ashamed to ask their parents for help, Christina struggled on alone. Day after day, for months, she mapped out strategies to make it through the school day.
My dad would drop me off in the morning, and I'd wait in the car for a couple minutes before the late bell rang, and then I'd hurry up and rush into class.
At lunch, she'd hide in the girls' bathroom, and between classes,
I'd take different hallways, that I knew they weren't going to be in.
She had her whole day mapped out around where these girls were going to be.
Jessica Klinger was a classmate of Christina's in the 7th grade. One Friday last February, in the school library, Jessica says she saw some of the girls taunting Christina from the hallway.
They were beating on the window with their fists, and they were saying we're gonna kill you and stuff. And so I walked over to Christina and I stood in front of her because she was crying and she was real upset sitting there. And then she told me how these girls, they'd been following her for a few months now, and they'd been beating her up.
Finally, Christina had an ally and a protector, but standing up for Christina just made Jessica a target too.
These girls, they started hitting me in the back, and they were just punching me, and then they were hitting up against me with their shoulders, saying we're gonna kill you and stuff, and we're gonna get you because we were talking to her and you got in front of her and now we're after you.
Jessica, a basketball player and an A student, told her mother she was scared to go back to school. Her mother turned for help to the school's assistant principal in charge of discipline, Sam King.
So I knocked on the door and, hello, Mr. King, I'm Audrey Klinger. Excuse me, but my daughter's a little nervous to be here today. And I told him what happened Friday. And he said, well, now, Jessica, I need some detail. Now, who are these students?
He's like, you can trust me, I won't tell anybody. So I gave him the name.
So I'm ironing, I'm home 2 hours, and the phone rings. And it's Mr. King, and he's very upset and very apologetic. He said, I'm so sorry, I made a big mistake.
He made a big mistake.
He made a big mistake.
Coming up next, what was Mr. King's big mistake when calling Jessica's mother? You may be shocked to see what had happened when the principal called her mother and said what happened. We'll give you that story coming up next. And later, a mom is speaking out about a bullying incident that happened at a charter school. Stay with us. Tonight we're continuing our bullying in schools here in the show, where we're looking at stories that are about bullying. Before the break, I'm showing you what happened on 2020 back in 1997, the year I was born, when they talked about an incident that happened in bullying back in 96, which was 26 years ago. Something like that. And what had happened was, and you've heard from Jessica and Christina. Now we're gonna and probably Christina's parents. Now we're gonna hear from Jessica's mother, and you're gonna hear the outrageous decision that leaves everybody, including me, stunned. Once again, here's Steve Averson.
She says that Mr. King's mistake was using Jessica and Christina's names to suspend the girl Jessica mentioned for one day, and that meant big trouble with the gang. To anyone hearing this story, the solution would seem obvious: a tough stance with the kids who were causing all the trouble. But what happened instead seemed to make no sense. Here, they called the victims in and said, we can't guarantee your safety. We think it would be best if you went home.
It was devastating for somebody to tell you, you're not safe to be here, go home.
She said, why are you sending me home? I didn't do anything. And he said, honey, listen, these kids are just upset right now. It will all blow over by tomorrow. It will be okay.
Let me pause this just for a minute. Here's the situation would have been: zero tolerance bullies, zero tolerance policies, training for principals and teachers. All schools need to have zero tolerance for bullying. It's just that simple. Nowadays with technology, it's like nobody does anything but film. Take a look.
The next day, it was not okay. At lunch, Jessica says she was hit. Christina punched in the face. All 4 parents rushed to the school to meet with Mr. King. What he said shocked them.
We cannot keep your daughter safe. We will provide you homebound school if you so desire. And I said, can you repeat that?
I mean, am I hearing this right? Homeschooling for my daughter? I mean, she's done nothing wrong.
I said, so Mr. King, before we leave, you're telling me that the girls that just hit, verbally abused and threatened my daughter are in class, and I'm taking home my daughter who did nothing. Is that correct? And he said, I don't know what else to do.
Let me tell you what you can do as a principal. If you're a bully, if you're ever seen someone bully, here's what you can do. Call them in, issue them a stern warning, and then bam. That's what would have happened. You may think I'm spoiling this story. Let me tell you something. I'm not spoiling the story. As a principal, what you need to do, assistant or regular principal, call them in, issue a stern warning, and this will never happen again.
The families felt they had landed in a world turned upside down. They were confused and angry. What they didn't know was that the school had been through this before with a different group of girls 4 years earlier. Jessica Krakar was the target then.
Jessica started in 8th grade. There was a group of girls who were threatening her, harassing her. She was really scared of them. I mean,
Jessica's mother, Camilla, says she called Joe Leftwich, then the school's assistant principal for discipline.
Sometimes I'd call him 4 and 5 and 6 times a week. And he would always tell me that Jessica had she was imagining it. She was over-dramatizing it, that nothing would happen. These girls were fine.
But then one morning in April, outside the school library, Jessica was attacked.
I felt people pulling my neck, pulling my hair. I got punched in the face. I felt people's hands just all over me.
Camilla was shocked to find her daughter bruised and bleeding, but even more surprised to hear Joe Leftwich say the words that would become so familiar to Christina and Jessica's parents 4 years later.
He said, why don't you keep her home for like a week till this all blows over?
The Krakars went to the police, who they say did what the school should have. Called the girls and parents in, issued a stern warning, and solved the problem. We wanted to ask Joe Leftwich, now the principal at Franklin, and Sam King, his assistant, why the school would send innocent children home. We were referred to the superintendent of schools, Dr. Lee Rick.
We've been told by several parents that they have been forced to leave the junior high school because their daughters were the subjects of harassment, and that the administration said we can't protect their safety.
I think that's an inaccurate statement. First of all, to say that any student has been forced to leave the junior high school. If they chose to leave, it was their or their parents' own volition that made that choice.
Your turn, Chrissy.
But Christina's parents say they tried everything they could to keep her in the school. They even went and met with Superintendent Rick.
He said, I'll work something out, and I'll give you a call. Well, he didn't call.
A few days later, not knowing what else to do, the 2 girls went back to school, only to face the taunting and the threats all over again.
Kids would come up to me I didn't even know saying so-and-so wants to kill you because they're in the gang's after you. And that's very intimidating for a kid to be getting, I'd say about 5 death threats a day. And I'd think, why are they after? I didn't do anything to them.
Mrs. Mossa, would you please call the roll?
Jessica and Christina's parents went all the way to the school board, begging them to find a way to keep their daughters safe. But the plan the board came up with again seemed to turn logic on its head. No punishment for the gang, and the spotlight right back on the victims. Christina and Jessica would be followed through the halls at school by aides with walkie-talkies. If the strategy was meant to help, it failed. The girls felt humiliated.
I shouldn't be walking around with a security guard when I wasn't doing anything, and the girls that were doing all this were just roaming around free. Felt like me going to jail, not school.
The families had had enough. For the rest of the year, Christina and Jessica were homeschooled in Jessica's basement. cut off not only from the classroom, but also from school dances, ball games, friends, the fabric of a 13-year-old's life. Their parents have now filed a lawsuit, charging the school district with negligence and violating their daughter's civil rights. The school has denied the charges and, citing the lawsuit, would not allow the principals or anyone else to discuss them with 2020. The suit refers to the harassers as students A, B, C, and D. Christina and Jessica are still afraid to mention them by name. We found some of the girls, who many students told us have continued to threaten and harass other kids at school. With us, they were defiant, elusive, and eager to blame the victims.
Them girls that we harassed, they instigated it. They either said, we'll kick your butt, or they'll whip us the finger just to get us mad to see what we're due.
I only knew one of the girls, so I don't know how I came up as harassing both of them.
Why do you think those girls did leave school?
So that the school looks bad. It makes us look like we really did do something, but we didn't.
Today, a new school year is well underway at Franklin Junior High. Classes are in full swing. It's homecoming season. But Jessica and Christina are not a part of all that. They're spending 8th grade at home. They don't sleep well at night, and psychologists have told their parents they're too traumatized right now to be in any school.
I went to work this morning, I see all the kids down at the bus stop. I'm thinking, what a thing she's missing on. All the kids are down there talking. There's my daughter sitting back up at home.
I want to go to school and be with my friends, but I just don't know if I'm ready to go back to school. I'm kind of afraid that this is going to happen again.
The way I feel now is I don't ever want to go back to school. I'm content just to sit at home for the rest of my school days. It's not a good thing to say, but I'm not safe to go to school.
But she had a change of heart. Jessica decided, I want to go back to school. But it's home, but it's a private school which the parents have to pay for. That's a great solution to Jessica's education. Coming up next, how would you feel if, as a mother, how would you feel if your daughter or son came home to you and said she was bullied? One mother from a charter school is speaking out to tell her side of the story that her son or daughter was bullied. And we'll give you the inside story. Stay with us. As a mother, how would you feel? What would you do if your son or daughter came home saying, I'm bullied, I don't want to go back to school, this and that? Well, that's what happened 5 days ago at a charter school. Now the mother is speaking out to tell her side of the story about what had happened. Here's a look from First Coast News.
A Duval County public charter school mom is speaking out after she says that her daughter was threatened by another student at school. The mom says she filed a police report because the school administration did not.
School leaders, however, say they were also following up on all these things, trying to figure out what was going on with the code of conduct. On your side, Tia Collins spoke with the mom and charter school leaders, and she joins us live now. Tia?
Good morning. Well, at this point, the situation has been resolved, but the mom is still concerned, and it raises questions about how exactly do schools investigate bullying and threats of violence. Sarah Boyd says it began when her 11-year-old daughter got into an argument over a classroom seat in the Duval Charter School at Mandarin. She says the situation turned into a threat of violence.
She's like, but he keeps shouting his address, and he's saying, come to my house, just come to my house, and I wish you would just come to my house, because I'm going to get a gun and I'm going to light you up.
Boyd says this happened on a Thursday. She says she emailed the school principal asking for the students to be separated and was told an investigation would be completed. But she says on Friday the student was still in her daughter's class, so Boyd filed a police report. School administrators can't comment on this case, but they do say they have a protocol they follow.
I'll hear things like, oh, the school knew about it, but they didn't do anything. That's not ever going to be the case. What happens, though, is the school is not allowed to share with you, with other parents, anything about another student.
Colleen Reynolds, a spokesperson for the Mandarin Charter School, says schools have 10 days for an investigation into bullying, during which they will collect statements from the alleged victim, the accused student, and any witnesses. If a student makes a threat of violence, law enforcement will be notified. For Boyd, she understands there are rules, but as a parent doesn't like being left in the dark, especially after the Uvalde school shooting.
I think it's so vitally important that when you have a child whose life has been threatened, whether or not you think it's a threat to the school, you cannot leave parents silenced.
Now, JSO did confirm that they visited the school and completed a general offense report regarding this incident. Boyd tells me that her daughter has been separated from this student. Now, school leaders suggest parents, anytime you hear anything involving bullying, report it to the school and allow them to complete their investigation. Reporting in Jacksonville, Atia Collins, First Coast News, on your side.
I'm glad something's being done about this. And again, report it to the school and let them take care of it. That way we can all be safe. Coming up next, as a student, what would you do if a friend started choking you because of your race, because of what had happened? Because of your race, because of your race. That's what happened, and the Young Turks are going to weigh into this. White bully chokes out racial minority and gets lighter punishment than the victims. Anna and what's his name are going to share their thoughts about this. So am I. Stay with us. Now on to racist bullying. It's where people make fun of, it's where like white people make fun of African Americans because of their race, blah 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 blah. But this happened 4 months ago. 4 months ago, an Indian American student who was bullied and choked out by one of the white classmates actually received a harsher punishment for the assault than the white student. They blame the Indian American student for provoking the altercation, even though videos show that he played the role of the aggravator of the attack. What's going on? Here's Anna Casperni and John L. I can't pronounce his last name, so take a look at this, and then we'll...
Indian American middle school student who was bullied by a white student to the point where he was actually choked by the white student received a lengthier suspension than his bully. This took place in Texas, and if you think the story's bad enough, it actually is about to get worse. So in a viral video that's been circulating online, the Indian American student, his name is Sean Pritmani, is seen being assaulted and choked by a fellow white student in the cafeteria of Coppell Middle School in Texas. So the video that you're about to watch shows exactly that. Let's take a look at that, and then I'll fill in all the details of what happened afterwards.
Hold on! They are. Okay, literally nobody sitting here. Okay, I'll try to get.
So, turns out that Sean's parents were contacted. Sean is the Indian American kid that you see in the video. They were contacted by the school and informed that their son had been involved in an altercation with another student. The school allegedly found Sean to be at fault. He received a 3-day in-school suspension as punishment, while the aggressor only received 1 day.
Are you crazy? Sean should have been left with a warning, and that bully should have gotten 3 days in school suspension. There, it's all done. That problem would have been solved. Take a look at that. Look at the other story I just showed you. Look at the previous two stories. Not the other one. The Dangerous Hallway segment 2020. The spotlight is back on the victim.
In fact, a user on Facebook claiming to have spoken to Sean's mother said that the victim and bully were placed in the same room in school suspension for 2 days in a row, basically.
Yeah.
And the bully, by the way, the bully allegedly said that he felt no regret for what he did, which is, I mean, incredibly mind-blowing. Is it mind-blowing? And it turns out that the white student has a well-connected father, and that might have played a role in the school's decision to dole out a stricter punishment for the victim in this case.
Yeah, so the dad even ran for the school board. He didn't win, but he apparently had a lot of contacts, and he apparently contacted them, etc. So there's a lot of news coming out about this story in Texas. And that side is now starting to smear the South Asian kid, okay? And they're saying, oh, he said mean things to the kid earlier. Now, okay, his side is saying that's not remotely true. They're doing like now like weirdo negative campaigning against this poor kid, right? But guys, let's just assume for a second that it is true. And assume you're the administrator. I'll do likewise, okay? They come to my office. The video obviously exists. It's on social media. You can see it on Twitter, right? Mm-hmm. It's about your school. This has gotten unbelievable attention. So they all know the video, right? And you bring it to me and you say, oh, no, it's okay. The Indian kid said mean things about the white kid. So would any of you say, oh, then that's okay?
Yeah, choke him out. Who
yeah,
cares?
yeah. Go ahead and choke him and attack him, etc. And what he said to hurt your feelings, he gets 3 days suspension, and you only get 1 day for physically assaulting him. Even if it were true, there's no way that makes sense.
He was trying to defend himself.
Look, the thing that remains is it's Texas, and they don't care about minorities. And they think, oh, connected white kid, yeah, of course we're not going to punish him. We'll punish the guy that he attacked. So prove me wrong. Prove me wrong. But as usual, no, they attacked the minority on top, insult to injury.
Yeah, and look, race could definitely play a role, but I think the father being connected plays a bigger role here, and we'll get to the details on how he contacted them and stuff as well.
But by the way, oftentimes that's also racial, and what I mean by that is white people in this country have already accumulated power.
Right.
So especially for immigrants, when they come into the country, they don't know anyone. They barely, and so it takes them a long time, generations, to build up connections, networking, etc. And by the way, that's part of the reason why they do affirmative action, because when black people were first free, they had no connections. How the hell were they ever going to get a job? And all the way through the civil rights era, etc., the firemen kept hiring their sons. The longshoremen kept hiring their sons. And not out of bad intent, but they were, everybody in power was already white, right? Mm-hmm. So that's why, even if it's just, hey, the dad is connected and the kid who's attacked, his parents aren't connected, that, because of the nature of America, is de facto also racial.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. Now, when his parents, meaning the victim's parents in this case, requested a reassessment using the viral video as evidence, the school said that there will be no changes made. So the video, apparently, the evidence was not in any way persuasive for them. The school resource officer refused to file a citation because the school administration allegedly asked that the incident not be documented, as there have already been many bullying complaints.
Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? If you would have investigated this, if you had asked, no, there would have been changes made. Bam. Changes for the victim.
See,
what?
Yeah.
We're not going to document this because there's already too much documentation in regard to this student and his bullying. So we want to protect him by not documenting more. Like, what was that?
So look. Nothing in this story is justifiable. So in this case, first of all, you got a bullying epidemic in your school apparently. So you're like, it's happening so much, we don't want to document it further because it could cause us problems. How about you fix it?
Right.
And the way you fix it is not by doing a slap on the wrist to the bullies and attacking their victims. Gee, I wonder why you have a bullying epidemic in your school when you react that way. But even if you say, hey, you know what, maybe it's not the connected dad, and maybe it has nothing to do with race, they're just worried about the bullying, getting a reputation for bullying, and they're just trying to brush it under the carpet. Mm-hmm. But even if that were true, why give the kid who was bullied 3 times as much punishment. That doesn't make any sense at all.
Insult to injury, right?
Yeah.
It's bad enough to not punish the bully. It's even worse to,
Punish the victim.
do a slap on the wrist for the bully while punishing the victim even worse. And let's get to the bully's father. So his name is Sam Wellington, as this tweet describes. Sam Wellington, father of child, ran on Coppell ISD Board of Trustees. His kid got 1 day suspension while the victim got 3. Wellington, no offense to all the Wellingtons out there, but Wellington is like the perfect last name for this situation.
I know. I almost can't say the name Wellington without saying, I do declare.
I do declare.
Okay. So, but guys, look, overall, I almost hate that there's a racial component to this story, but there's an old boys club, right? And it really does exist in places. And so, in this case, they just naturally are inclined to, I know that guy, and so I'm going to help his kid, but hurting the other kid on top. I mean, even if you just give the bully a 1 day suspension and didn't suspend the kid who was the victim, probably none of this is a national news story, right? Mm-hmm. But the gratuitous, smearing of the victim is what makes it unbearable. And unfortunately, it happens far too often. Thanks for watching.
Well, we might have time for one more question. What would you do if your kid was being bullied at school? Here again is the Young Turks to answer that question.
A Swedish boy who's been bullied now has a bodyguard accompanying him at school every day.
That's silly, but...
Can you imagine? He's an 11-year-old boy. They've been bullying him at school for years now. Mm-hmm. And the parents are fed up with it because the school isn't doing anything about it. So they're like, look, we have to hire a bodyguard to protect our son.
Look, I've always thought that this was an unsolvable answer, a riddle. I think it's really tough because...
That could be true.
You tell your son to man up and go kick the guy's ass. What if the bully is like significantly larger?
Right.
There's nothing the kid can do. Second of all, I don't want to encourage the kid to get into violence. But then if the kid keeps beating your kid, but then you go and then you seem like, your parents had to come and rescue you. Hiring a bodyguard is mental, right? I don't know. Do you teach them to band together, get a couple other nerds and kick him in the shins and run and then set up a trap and, like you see in the movies, and then they gets lifted up in the net, and then they give him a wedgie. I don't know. I don't know what to do. It's a tough thing.
I thought of myself in this situation as the parent of the bullied kid, right? I think that I would first attempt to talk to the bully's parents, and that wouldn't work. 100% that wouldn't work. And then I think I would physically harm the kid. I think I would. Because, look, it's mother's instinct. I know, you can't, it's wrong, blah. Someone harms my kid, I'll kill him. It's that easy.
It's not gonna work, is what I'm saying.
Jail time. You kill your mother, jail time right there. But the story, this doesn't end here. On Wednesday, you're gonna hear from a Dr. Phil guest from almost 10 years ago, who was a Dr. Phil, exclusively telling her side of the story. The victims and the bully's parents came forward to Dr. Phil to tell their story. It's all about the KKK. Now, if you're thinking about the Ku Klux Klan thinking I'm racist, this is not. It's called the Kill Katie Club. Or it could have been called KKC or whatever. But I watched that story, and it's on the Stop Bullying Speak Up group on Facebook. If you would like to join, it's on the link in the description below. If you'd like to find out how to stop bullying, log on to the Give Me a Break newsletter at givemebreak.substack.com with tips and information about bullying. And as always, I'd like to say, stop bullying, speak up. That's all for this edition of Give Me a Break Monday. We'll see you again for Give Me a Break Wednesday. And remember, stop bullying, speak up. Because if you stop bullying and speak up, you too can be a star, just like the victims. Good night, everyone.